What is going on, everybody? Welcome to week number 2 of our Cultivating Calm for you at MapleSoft. Week number 2 starts with, again, of informal practice, labeling, how you can use that practice of labeling throughout your day. Remind yourself, informal is how we incorporate mindfulness throughout the day. And then we have formal guided practice that I'll share at the end. So just touching on any questions or comments that are coming in, and this is a very common one that I haven't just got from this group, from many groups, is, Mike, when is the best possible time to meditate or to use these formal practice of mindfulness? And the best possible time is when you can make the time happen in your day. Now, for me personally, I meditate as soon as I wake up. I do my formal practice, my guided formal practice. I do that first thing as soon as I wake up. Why, you ask? Good question. Because as the day goes on, I find it much harder to get mindfulness into my day. You know, after I'm done sessions with clients or workshops, I find that my to-do list is long, so I'll kind of do stuff around the house or, with the kids. And I find that, okay, I'll do it later tonight, maybe before I go to bed, then I end up reading or watching a show. I find that if I just start my day with the practice, it is much easier for me to get in, and I've been doing that for a long time. Actually, since I started having kids. Before kids, I would kind of meditate whenever I could. Now I find that for me personally, if I meditate as soon as I wake up, that's the best way for me. Now, that might not be the best way for you. And the first 2 weeks are really about you exploring, one, can you remind yourself to do a formal practice? Because maybe you haven't meditated before we've done this session, so your mind is getting caught in just their normal to-do list. So if you're like, Mike, we were supposed to start last week and I forgot, it's totally okay, right? You can start the course on your own pace. And if we're 2 weeks ahead of you or 3 weeks ahead of you, there's nothing wrong with you messaging me and saying, hey, Mike, I'm on week 1. I know you're in week 3 still or going on to week 4. Just keep those questions coming in. Remind yourself that I have an hour set aside every week at least for those of you who have questions, comments, or concerns about this course that we're doing, okay? So the first informal practice I want to put down so everybody understands is this idea of thought versus fact. So remind yourself, again, we're incorporating, an informal practice is incorporating mindfulness throughout our day. In our day-to-day, we are incorporating mindfulness. So one of the practices that I find to be incredibly helpful is this idea of noticing, is it a thought? And a thought means it might, may, or could happen. That's a thought. Or you're replaying something that has happened in the past. Now, a fact means it's actually happening in the present moment. It's happening in the now. So if we hit that pause button, the last time that you were caught in, let's say, an anxious thought or a worry, and you were to replay this and ask yourself, okay, is this a thought, meaning it might, may, or could happen? Just noticing that. Or in the fact, was it happening in the now, in this present moment in the now? The chances are, when you're caught in anxious thoughts or worries thoughts, the chances are that you are probably caught in the future with something that might, may, or could happen. Or you're going through the thought of it and rehashing what has happened in the past, which is another form of thought. And we have thoughts typically in 2 ways, right? So try this out now. Close your eyes, and I want you to think about your childhood home. The chances are you're probably going to see that home in image. Now, if you were to close your eyes again and I said, all right, think of your name. Now, some of you might have heard your name, like Mike, or you might have seen Mike written out. We experience thoughts in these 2 ways. We see them or we hear them, and sometimes we have a combination of both. So what you can do, the next time that you're caught in a thought, label it. Thought, thinking, image thought, hearing thought. Break it down and label. Labels are your friends. Remind yourself, labels are your friends. The more that you are able to label your experience and articulate that experience to yourself, the higher chance that you're going to respond and work with these emotions and thoughts in a healthier way. So again, press pause. The next time you're caught in something, ask yourself, is this a thought, meaning it might, may, or could happen? Or is it a fact? Is it actually happening in the present moment? See, I can't or no one can help you with something that might happen 6 months from now, or 6 weeks from now, or 6 hours from now if you're meeting that you have a big meeting or presentation in 6 hours. But what we can do is help you with the present moment. So if you're thinking in your thought about something that might happen, may happen, or could happen in the future, and you're stuck in that thought and thinking, well, this presentation at 4 o'clock, I'm really nervous about it. What happens if the person says this and I have to say this, or they say that? I'm not really sure that answer. When you start getting caught in that hamster wheel and that thought cycle spins and goes faster and faster and faster and faster, it can be very troublesome for you. What I'd rather you do is not get caught in the thought of what might, may, or could happen. I would much rather you label it as a thought and ask what the fact is in the present moment. Well, if the fact is that you're worried in the present moment about something 4, 5, 6 hours or 6 weeks from now, we can work with that worry in real time. How do we do that, Mike? We'll go back to week number 1, working with difficult emotions or noting emotions. If you're worried about something 6 hours from now, instead of teleporting yourself 6 hours from now, making up all the things that might, may, or could happen, why don't you take a moment and breathe in and notice that worry, and breathe out and acknowledge that worry, and then breathe in and notice that worry, and then breathe out and acknowledge that worry in real time, in the present moment, in the here and now. Start with that simple practice, incorporating it into your day. Thought versus fact. Something as simple as that. Now, there's not a guided practice to that because it's an informal practice. So I'll make sure to put it in reminders that remind yourself to use the thought versus fact practice at least once a day. When you're caught in it, thought or fact, thought or fact. Get used to labeling. Get used to labeling. If you're at the end of the day, you've noticed you haven't done it yet, then there's nothing wrong with kind of going through a previous experience that you've had and using it as a lesson. So to say, okay, well, this happened today, earlier in the day at lunchtime. I was really caught in thoughts. Put yourself back in that space. What was I caught in? The thought of what might, may, or could happen. What was the fact? I was anxious. What was the fact? What the fact was, I was nervous. The fact was, I was angry. Whatever it is. Okay, start there. So that's our informal practice this week. Labeling thought or fact. Start there. The formal practice is the practice of allowing things to be here. Many people say, Mike, I want this anger, or I want this frustration, or I'm worried about, numbers are going up. Totally get it. I'm with you all. But when you're caught in that story and people want to say, Mike, I want to let this anxiety go. I want to get rid of this. The first step in letting things go is allowing them to be there. One of my favorite teachings talks about letting whatever's there to float without resistance. Because often what we do is we have, anxiety or frustration or anger or shame, and we try to push it out, right? We try to push it out or push it down. What this practice is letting whatever's there be there for just this moment. So you're worried about the numbers going up. You're noticing that you're worried in the present moment. Okay. Can you let it be there for just this moment? That's often what I say to people when I'm talking to them and they say, Mike, I'm really angry. I do not want to deal with this frustration or this anger for the next 6 weeks or 6 months. I say, I get it. I believe you. But can you let it be here for just this moment? Can you let the anger that you're experiencing be here for just this moment? Not the next 60 moments, not the next 60 years. But can you let this anger or this frustration or this anxiety be here for just this moment? To let it be here in your awareness for just this moment without trying to manipulate it, without trying to push it away or shove it down. Are you able to let it be here for just this moment, for just this breath? I've found this, especially during COVID. I created this practice because of COVID and during COVID. And I found, when my mind was worried about all these workshops I had to cancel, and I was inundated with fear and worry, anxiety, and, future thoughts, my mind would want to go, I can't deal with this stress for X amount of time. I would say, but can you deal with it for just this moment? And my answer was always yes. That's not, do you love this experience? Do you love how it makes you feel? No, of course not. But what it is asking, can I let it be here for just this moment? Not the next 30, not the next 40, for just this moment. And what I found is that it let me start to soften how I was holding that emotion or those worries or those thoughts. No different than a regular practice of noting emotions, breathing in, acknowledging what's there, right? Breathing out, acknowledging, breathing in, maybe noticing the emotion, breathing out, acknowledging it. I found a very similar pattern when I was experiencing discomfort. I could breathe in my anger or frustration and say, can I let it be here for just this moment? So what I actually do when I'm experiencing worry or stress, I breathe in and say, okay, just this moment. Just this moment on the out breath. I breathe in, noticing this frustration for just this moment. Breathing out, letting it be here for just this moment. That idea of just this moment has then also translated to when I'm walking my dog, I'll bring my awareness into when I'm walking and say, just this step, just this step, just this step. I'm finding that breaking it down into these little micro practices. So you wake up in the morning and you forget, and you're like, oh crap, Mike, I didn't do that just this moment practice. On your drive to work, for 2 minutes, be present driving for just this moment and use that mantra, just this moment. If you're working from home, cool. Before you check your email, just tune in for just this moment. Ask yourself, how am I doing right now in this present moment for just this moment, right? Breaking it down. So that's the 2 practices for this week. The first practice, the informal practice of noting thought versus fact. Start there. Are you caught in what might, may, or could happen? Or are you dealing with a fact that's happening now? Right? If the fact is that you're worried, you can go back to week 1 and work with that practice of noting emotions in, acknowledging them as they go out. Or week 2, right now, you can do this practice of letting the emotions be there for just this moment. Letting them be here for just this moment or just this breath. I find either one of those to be incredibly helpful. And if you do it once or twice, you're like, Mike, it's not working. That's okay. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It typically takes 3 or 4 weeks of a regular practice till you see a difference. Right? This isn't something that you do once or twice and then you're like, wow, mindfulness has really helped. It's completely changed. This is a systematic training of your brain. Okay? Any questions that come in, do not hesitate to message me at mindfulmike.ca, or you can DM me, of course, at mindfulmassey, MASSE. So let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and I'll see you next week. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.